Live here on AMP, Wednesday morning, afternoon, lunchtime, depending on where you may live. Hell, it could be night if you're an international. Here with my man, Philadelphia native, live from Lexington, Kentucky, I think.
Something like that, yeah.
Stuckey, what's up, bro?
What's going on, brother? By the way, who's having a wedding on the best college football regular season weekend of the year?
Yeah, my girlfriend's brother is getting married to his long time girlfriend, and I guess now fiance. Luckily, I think the wedding on Saturday doesn't start till 5, and the venue is also like this winery with TV, so I'm gonna be able to not miss much action as it looks. I guess Notre Dame. I don't plan on missing much, so
That's good.
I will find a way. I'm glad CU and Oregon is earlier in the day, so I'll be able to take that all in. But yeah, I'm with you. This is I was really quick. You can find Stuckey Action Network, Big Bets on Campus. Go subscribe to the podcast. Just had everyone's Sunbelt Billy. He's about to get fired, and then Florida absolutely demolishes Tennessee. I was like, I was thinking about it, and then I ended up going to Arizona State, Fresno State, who I also was going to put a bet on Fresno State, but I was like, this game can get weird, and then they absolutely demolished them. So, yeah,
that was that. You saw one of probably the worst football games that will be played this year. I think what did Arizona State use? 4 quarterbacks at 8 turnovers.
Oh my God, it was crazy,
bad.
Yeah, I went to that as the epic Colorado game was going on, but I guess let's start with college because this weekend, from an NFL perspective, the amount of scouts that are going to be out and about at these games is going to be pretty outrageous. I mean, I was texting around with some buddies. I think some of these teams or some of these games are going to have close to like every team have representation at it, given, especially Notre Dame, Ohio State to really, this is an enormous moment for Sam Hartman. We don't know Shador. I think, that I don't know if you saw that video that went viral. It looked like they were at the Bronco game where Deion's like, you ain't coming out. You're coming back. But, Bo Nix is a guy. I mean, you're an SEC country who, most people had kind of written off. He's definitely resurrected his career, and there are going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game for sure. And while I don't know if there's a quarterback in the game, I guess Jackson Dart, but Ole Miss and Bama's got to have a lot of pro prospects at other positions. So, yeah, I mean, college football doesn't get much better than this week because the NFL slates, I'd call it average.
Yep. A lot of big spreads. There's a couple mismatches out there, but the NFL Sunday never disappoints. But yeah, this is especially after last Saturday, which is very underwhelming in college football. This has all the juice. You have a Florida State Clemson, which will have obviously ACC but national title, college football playoff implications. The list just goes on and on.
Okay, let's start. I'm sure you have a stat, but it feels like Notre Dame over the last decade of the Brian Kelly era into, last year I don't totally count it, but now that they have a quarterback, they just haven't won many of these games, obviously in the playoffs and definitely back when they, went to the national championship against Alabama. I like them a lot in this spot. I mean, they're getting 3 points at home. I don't know about you, but that's, Saturday and Sunday, probably my favorite bet of the week. And I think Notre Dame, has a chance to be really, really good. I don't know, compete to win the national championship. Like, can they beat Georgia? But I definitely think they could beat Ohio State this week. And you're getting points at home. That place is going to be bananas. I like Notre Dame.
Yeah, I agree. I will be curious to see how many Ohio State fans show up. They travel really well. And we'll be able to see the gold versus the red in the crowd. A couple of friends of mine who are Ohio State fans have already told me that they're going. So that's one thing that I'm interested in seeing. But yeah, I agree. I mean, these two teams played last year in the first game of the year. And Notre Dame, actually kept it close. They lost 21-10. It was an ugly game. They didn't have a quarterback. One of their quarterbacks, they played 2 quarterbacks last year. One of their quarterbacks got benched playing for Alabama last week. He threw for 30 yards in the first half against South Florida. Their other one, Drew Pine, you went and saw last week at Arizona State, one of the 4 quarterbacks who can't complete a pass. So they were at a massive disadvantage from a quarterback perspective because Ohio State then had C.J. Stroud. So you're talking number 2 overall pick and 2 guys who couldn't throw a birthday party. So, now you look at it and Notre Dame has the better all-around quarterback. I'm not a Kyle McCord guy. He could prove me wrong. Like last week, yeah, he went off. He's got the best receivers in the best receiver room in the country. But Western Kentucky's defense is way down. They gave up 400 yards rushing to South Florida. They lost a bunch of really good players from last year's team. They're going to get carved up by any good offense. It's just a complete talent mismatch. And by the way, the Ohio State offense looked very underwhelming against Youngstown State and Indiana before that. So, yeah, I mean, I have the home dog here with the better all-around quarterback, the experienced quarterback going up against, a kid who's getting his first dose of a real defense in a hostile environment. And the Ohio State receivers, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be ridiculous in the NFL. They're great, but Notre Dame has one of the best cornerback duos in college football in Morrison and Hart. And last year, they actually held Stroud and that passing attack in check. And that was Morrison's first ever start in college. And Hart was banged up, wasn't 100% healthy. So I think from what I've seen, Ohio State's going to be able to get a push. They have a really good offensive line outside of one guard spot, which is leaky, but they're going to be able to push up. So they're going to Estime and company. We'll be able to run the ball a little bit. That's going to set up the Hartman deep shots, just something they didn't have last year. They couldn't throw it downfield at all. And I think the Notre Dame defense will force McCord into some mistakes. Obviously, the receivers are going to make some plays. I think the defense is a little bit improved under Jim Knowles for Ohio State, but this is a very veteran Notre Dame team that I think is ready for this test. And mainly it's because of the quarterback play. And they have the edge here against Ohio State. And not many times in recent history can you say that.
It's funny, beside all the hoopla last week, everyone before that started had circled this little stretch for Colorado once they won those first couple games at Oregon, USC. You've seen that game next week against, Caleb Williams is the Fox morning kickoff game, 9 a.m. 10 million people just watched last week. Deion is just a rocket ship of interest right now. This line's weird, right? Not even weird. It's enormous. I mean, it's 3 touchdowns on the road, which historically for us out West is probably the closest thing that you have to an SEC environment when that place is rocking. It's really loud. This has been one of the best programs, probably the most consistent. I mean, Utah's had a little run here, but over the last decade and a half, beside that little stretch from Stanford, once Pete Carroll left, this is, I don't really know. This is probably stay away from me. It seems like a lot of points, but I've seen teams get in there. If Oregon's rolling, Bo Nix is on, they might have more NFL players top to bottom, especially on defense. But this is a fascinating matchup, and this is another one. If Shador's making sweet plays, I mean, we're going to start talking about this guy as if he came out this year, would he, go right there with Drake May to be the number 2 pick? If he returns, I would say he would definitely be circled as the guy that would be the number 1 pick next year. So this is a pretty big moment for him, who's already had a bunch of really big moments.
Yeah, what Deion is doing is amazing. And this momentum early in the season, and when Colorado's good, it's better for college football too. But just this momentum he's building right now, he already was going to attract so many top end recruits and transfers, by the way, which is going to be massive. But now, after starting 3-0, the interest is even going to be higher. But I think they're up against it here. I think this has Oregon 58-21 written all over it. Something bad. I mean, look, if you look at what Colorado's done, and Travis Hunter's not going to play, he's a big loss. One of the things is Colorado team, they have a pretty talented, starting 11 outside of the offensive line is a problem, especially going into Eugene. And for what it's worth, over the last 30 years, the most profitable home favorite in conference play is Oregon. And to your point, and the offensive line is going to be a problem here. The defense is not that good. They have a couple stars like Hunter, and they make some plays, but this Oregon offense is on another level, and the Colorado defense just isn't very good right now. If you look at what Colorado has done, they came out. They've obviously Deion has assembled a much more talented roster than they had last year, where they were just pitiful. But they got the benefit of coming out against TCU, and TCU had no idea what to expect from that offense, right? Like they were just like, whoa, what is going on? And kind of just got shocked by it. And TCU scored at will against the Colorado defense. The next week they play Nebraska, And Nebraska basically just fumbles the game away. I mean, Colorado and Sanders did his thing, but I mean, they were going up against someone who couldn't snap the ball, and then when he did, he would
quarterback was a joke that game.
It was one of the worst performances I've ever seen. Then the next week you play a Colorado State team who was just lost by 40 to Washington State a couple weeks before, and you can't stop them because the quarterback was decent enough. It was his first ever start, and they were just going up and down the field. I don't see how that won't happen here. Colorado will put up a fight, but the other thing is that Oregon, in a spot like this, when you're laying a big number, the back door is always open. But like what Dan Lanning, the head coach for Oregon, he came out and like had some words about Colorado leaving the Pac-12, and I mean, even though they're leaving too, who knows with all this politics stuff.
He wasn't wrong though when he was saying that before the Deion stuff. That Colorado had been irrelevant.
Agreed. And no, I'm just saying everyone is gonna just trash everyone, and then everyone's gonna leave. But I get what he's saying as well. But and then Deion is out there. They're 3-0, and Deion likes to talk the talk. So some of these coaches in the Pac-12, when they're gonna get a chance to run it up a little bit, for Colorado is still a little beatable, they're gonna do it. And this is like Bo Nix Heisman season, at all eyes on it. So I think he could have a huge game. I just don't think the Colorado offensive line can hold up. Sanders is gonna be running for his life. And on the other side, I just don't see how this Colorado defense is going to get many stops. And the one thing I will say that I disagree with what Deion did it, and he built up the momentum of the program, but I don't think he will do it in the future, is that every game has been this massive like build up, and they played, 3 teams that could have beat them. And it's just this massive build up of energy, and that's a lot. That's exhausting. Everything that they've done. Meanwhile, Oregon's beating teams by 50, and they put up 80 in their sleep on Portland State. But Colorado, these kids have gotten up and up and up. Like how much they have in the tank. They don't have a lot of depth, and Oregon's going to put up a ton of points. So that could come back to bite them. You could see the dam break in the second half.
I was texting with someone yesterday when I was outside barbecuing and just, like us degenerates thinking about college football. Colorado's bound to lose a game this year to like Arizona or Arizona State or Stanford, just because, like you said, one, these are 19, 20-year-old kids. That's why last week wasn't that weird. It's college football. Like Alabama sometimes gets pushed. Last year, Missouri pushed Georgia. Weird shit happens. Weird shit happens in football in general, but in college for sure, because you're human. Like they're bound to be like a 10-point favorite against one of these other Pac-12 teams coming up, and they lose. Like that's classic. And they're also bound to do the opposite. Maybe they upset one of these games. Like maybe they beat USC in some crazy shootout. Because wouldn't you say that on paper, with the way they're built, they match up better against USC than they would Utah, Oregon, with like NFL bodies everywhere on defense that might be able to neutralize their power offense?
Yeah, Utah is too physical, and Oregon now has a pass rush, which is going to be a big problem for Sanders in that offensive line, which then they've been lacking that department. But yeah, USC, that you can win that game in like a finesse, just complete shootout back and forth.
What's the over under on that game going to be? 100?
It depends on what Colorado does this weekend, how much they give up and how much they score. USC also plays Arizona State, so they could put up a number. It could be high 70s for sure. I think the highest one I've ever seen, highest total in college football, I think got to high 80s before some Big 12 game back in the day.
Before we dive into the NFL, my favorite game right there with Notre Dame, I think this week is Washington State at home getting 3 points against Oregon State. Like to me, DJ Uiagalelei, he's definitely been a little more under control, but he still kind of looks pretty robotic to me. Like he might have a better season on paper than last year, but it's not like he's some different player. And I think Washington State, like you mentioned, Colorado State might be decent. Maybe they end up going 6-6. They fucking destroyed them. Washington State was decent last year. Well, actually, it was pretty good, right? They easily could have beat Oregon if they wouldn't have pulled one of the craziest games out of their ass of all of 2022. Washington State might just be one of those teams that like has a chance to be in the Pac-12 championship in 3 or 4 weeks. You'll be looking up, you're like, damn, they are, 6-0, 7-0. I think they're really good. Obviously, Oregon State is too. Really good coach, but at home, I think I've been to Wazoo. It's got a little, I wouldn't say it's quite Eugene, but that place can get really rowdy when they're good, and I think they're good. I love them +3 this week.
I think they've covered they have the longest home cover streak on the Palouse in the country. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's true. Yeah, I mean, look, the big matchup in this game is Washington State came into the year. They wanted to install a new offense with Cam Ward, and they wanted to be more vertical and attack more downfield. And was there going to be growing pains? Obviously not. And yeah, they exceeded expectations in week 1. They did it again against Wisconsin, and Wisconsin was coming out trying to avenge a home loss against Washington State last year. So you knew they were coming into that game fired up, but the offenses looked great. And that's what this is going to come down to. It's like, I agree with you on DJU. He's going to be a lot better because that offense, has one of the best offensive lines in all of college football. They lean on their ground game, and then it's just setting him up to, play action off of the running game. He's got a great offensive line. So everything's going to be a lot easier and simpler for him in that system, that it's just all run first. They don't ask him to do too much. But Washington State, with their downfield passing attack now, the weakness on this Oregon State defense coming into the year was on the back end. They lost a lot of talent in the secondary, and that could decide this game. I think I agree with you. I don't have a strong feel either way, but I think the winner of this game is sneaky and just one of the teams that people aren't talking about that could just slide into the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, let's dive into the National Football League. Last week, you nailed the Bills game. That was the easiest cover. The Denver Broncos, I would imagine you felt pretty good at halftime.
So up 18, Sean Payton, who was 72-0 with an 18 or more point lead in his career. The defense is horrifying. I mean, the Broncos scored more points than I ever dreamed of in the first half. They're up 18. The defense is lost. Vance Joseph replaced a really good defensive coordinator, and Evero is now in Carolina. Then obviously they had Fangio before then, and there's a huge drop off. They're just blitzing without any rhyme or reason. Sam Howell, they basically came back. They just ran screens, and Denver never adjusted. Sam Howell went 8 of 8 for 138 yards on screens in the second half, and the defense has let Denver down. Surprisingly, the offense has actually been pretty good. Russ has looked a lot better and more play action. And yeah, the Denver secondary, they've one really good elite corner in Patrick Surtain, one corner who I don't know if he might get cut this week. And then their safety situation, they lost Stearns, who's supposed to be a big player this year for the season. Kareem Jackson gets thrown out for targeting. They bring in a rookie. He gets hurt. They got to move a slot back to safety. He gives up what was the game-winning touchdown. I write it off, and then they get a Hail Mary, bring me right back in, and then don't get the 2-point conversion. So yeah, that was unfortunate, but I thought the Denver defense would be better against Sam Howell than it was. They just didn't adjust. And then it's my own fault for trusting Zach Wilson, but I don't even put all the blame on him for that game. Everyone knew he's terrible. The defense didn't make any big plays. Like Sauce had
no, they kind of got worked.
6. Yep. The defense was supposed to come in there and step up as one of the best units in the NFL. Sauce Gardner catches that pick 6. Maybe it's a different story. And also the offensive game plan, like you're going up against Michael Parsons, that pass rush with Zach Wilson and a bad offensive line. Move him, like roll him out, give him simple reads, like do what they do with Daniel Jones. He was just dropping back, deer in the headlights. And once they got behind, there was never a chance. But that Denver defense, that Dallas defense is excellent.
Okay, let's dive into your picks. This one surprised me a little bit. You like the Browns this weekend, -3 against the Titans. I would imagine, if you just polled the average football fan, they would just say that the Browns got major issues, injuries left and right, star running back out, though I think the backup actually looked pretty good. But their main issue is this quarterback right now does not, look remotely close to what he once was. There are rumors of he's got a burner account on Twitter responding to people. I don't know if you saw that one.
Yep.
But this seems like a team that, easily could have won that game. It took a couple defensive scores, kind of freaky defensive scores, but they happened. It's not like the Steelers, were lighting them up on offense. But I feel there's just a lot of negativity, and maybe you're going against that because the tangible evidence isn't as bad as I think the perception is.
Yeah, I mean, look, Nick Chubb's one of the best backs in the NFL, and he matters, but him being out, it's like Running backs rarely ever even impact the point spread. And the backup did look good. They also are going to sign Kareem Hunt today. And yeah, Watson hasn't looked great, specifically on his deep balls, which is what he was known for in the past. But I really like this Browns team because of the defense. The defense I thought was going to be one of the best, most improved defenses in the entire NFL. They brought in a new coordinator in Jim Schwartz. Last year, they were so disorganized. They beefed up the interior of the defensive line, added some dudes there, bringing Juan Thornhill at safety. You already have 3 really good corners. They were just running the wrong scheme. Well, so far this season, the defense, everyone's talking about the Dallas defense, rightfully so. The Browns defense has been even better statistically, and they didn't face Zach Wilson. They're on the season, they're allowing a 25% success rate, 25 and 27 in back-to-back weeks. For reference, last year, 5 total games where a defense allowed under 27%. A team hasn't sniffed the red zone against them. The Steelers didn't sniff the red zone last week. The Bengals didn't sniff the red zone. The Steelers had 2 defensive touchdowns, then a long touchdown pass. That's it. This defense is really good. They're going up against the Titans offensive line that is very questionable, probably be without one of their starting guard as well. And then on the back end, Tennessee's missing potentially a couple starters in the secondary. And I think Cleveland has enough juice, and they're going to come out fired up. This is like an emotion. Like, you lose to the Steelers. Okay, we're coming back home. They've already said they're going to dedicate it to Nick Chubb, and this will be like an emotional response against a Tennessee team that just came off an overtime win at home. They played a couple close games. I don't like what I've seen from Tannehill. The running game doesn't look like it's there. I'm just trusting this Browns defense at home. And now this line was 4.5, 5, probably would have passed. And then you're fading. I wouldn't have faded the dog God in Vrabel. But now that it's down to a 3, and I just need to win by a field goal or more, I'm taking the Browns. I don't think the market is really pricing in how much better this defense is. Could be one of the top 3 to 4 defenses in the entire NFL.
Well, because Brandon Staley takes so much oxygen, people aren't talking about Khalil Mack is just kind of a guy now. So when you watch them, they don't, and Bosa's banged up. They just don't get that much pressure. I mean, they have 2 guys making a ton of money, right? I mean, both guys are $20+ million, but Joey's $25 million guys, and they don't look like the Browns defensive line. And like you said, you listen, Najee, clearly that was an overpick, but they made him look like a JV player last week, beside the one run where he kind of got lucky cutting it back. I mean, he looked terrible. I mean, he looked like some teams would cut that guy, So yeah, it's and the Kelsey brothers, I saw a clip on their podcast. They played him in the preseason, and they're like, this team, I think the Eagles joint practiced against them, and they're like, this defensive line, they go too deep with just freaks everywhere. Just remove Myles Garrett. They got other dudes. They were both really, really impressed with the line of scrimmage. And as we know, if you're great at the line of scrimmage, the Cowboys, the Niners, you can just kind of get in the mix in basically the majority of the games you're going to play if that unit dominates.
Yeah, and you're playing against a quarterback who can't move around. So, I think it's going to be a really bad day for Tannehill. I think the Browns respond off that loss. And a game they should have won. And I think that their defense continues its dominant ways, and they get this win at home.
Okay, you're a Ravens guy, but you like the Colts. As of right now, Richardson hasn't passed the concussion protocol. He's played 2 games, moving around. He looks fantastic, as a runner. But he's taking a lot of shots. I take it you like him regardless who starts at quarterback with this big of a line.
Yeah, I'm assuming Minshew's going to start. Like, why? I mean, you're going to be cautious with Richardson, and from what I've read, he's going to be out. But if he does play, I don't mind it. He's looked better than I thought, but he's still limited as a passer. He hasn't attempted a pass that has gone more than 20 yards downfield. So like, there's nothing being attempted downfield when he's in the game. I'm a Ravens fan. I just think, in the NFL, when I'm trying to bet, it's a lot of like when I used to work in the market, you're trying to buy low, sell high, time the peak of teams, and buy the kind of the dip on certain teams in the market. And the Ravens have looked really good. Lamar Jackson's getting the ball out super quick this year under Todd Monken. His passing numbers are looking better. But this Ravens team, in week one, they're 2-0. They've covered both games. In week one, they beat a rookie quarterback on the road who was playing without his entire offensive line that they just pieced together, basically the week of the game. And then last week they go to Cincinnati and win, but Burrow is just, he can't really throw the ball.
Shell of himself,
Shell of himself. So like those 2 wins are not as impressive, and I'm a Ravens fan, as they looked on paper. So I think you're getting an inflated number. Look, and now you're coming back off that Cincy win. You got Cleveland next week. A little bit of a sleepy spot. Could be some big weather here, winds, and so this could be an ugly game. But Minshew could actually be an upgrade from a downfield passing perspective. And the most important thing here is, I've liked the Colts offensive line, which has been really bad the past couple of years. They've been good this year. The Colts defensive line has looked really good, and that's important because the Ravens are still probably going to be without their starting center, their starting left tackle. Dobbins is out. Beckham is probably going to be out. From the defensive side of the ball, last week they lost their slot. They lost Owe, one of their better pass rushers. Bowser's on IR. Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphrey. This team's down 10, 11 starters. Able to get away with it against a rookie quarterback in the offensive line. Able to get away with it with Burrow firing balls into the ground. But this week with a capable quarterback in Minshew, team with pretty good lines in the trenches on both sides, throwing some weather. I think getting over a touchdown here, it's a good spot to sell the Ravens, who are just so banged up. That's all anyone would be talking about if they just didn't find a way to go 2-0, just because other circumstances kind of broke their way.
Okay, Sunday Night Football in Las Vegas. And I take it you like the Raiders more in this game because of what you think of the Steelers than what you think of the Raiders.
Yeah, well, there's in travel spots, you used to be able to, 20 years ago, you used to be able to fade teams that went from the West Coast to the East Coast, but that's all been priced into the market and adjusted. One of the few travel situations that I still think does matter is teams going from the East Coast to the West Coast on a short week and playing in prime time. It throws off their body clock and the travel on a short week. That's what the Steelers have to do here off a big win. Teams in that situation, or for what it's worth, are 8-16 against the spread over the past 20 years. But anything under a field goal, I like the Raiders here. I do not like what I came into the season not liking what I've seen from Kenny Pickett. I'm not a Matt Canada guy. The play calling's been awful. They also have some key injuries. Deontay Johnson going IR. Hayward in the middle is so big. If you look at their run defense numbers, now we'll see if Josh Jacobs can actually run forward this week. But their run defense numbers are so bad when he's not on the field. You saw it last week. Didn't matter what back was in there for Cleveland. Run wherever you wanted to go, just up and down the field. And I think the Raiders can do that here. The Raiders defense isn't any good. But I just don't trust Kenny Pickett, the play calling, this offensive line, Najee Harris, like Pickens, but that's about it. So this team going on the road after a big win, kind of a sleepy spot. The Raiders, they got smacked as I expected them to do in Buffalo, but this is more their speed, and this is more the game that Jimmy G can win. And, teams are coming down and loading the box and daring Jimmy G to beat him with his arm. You saw some of that at San Fran. That's part of the reason. Jacobs, I think, is a little out of shape too, but part of the reason why Jacobs hasn't gotten going. I still think he'll be able to get going a little bit here. And I think Jimmy G can attack this secondary, which I'm not very fond of. Might be without Minkah Fitzpatrick as well. So I think Adams will have a big day. I think this is a good spot to back the Raiders to bounce back at home. Yeah, I mean, I love Tomlin. You got to love their edge rushers. Who knows? They could score another touchdown and they'll probably win this game. But outside of that, I'm just not a Pickett guy until he proves to me otherwise. And the play calling certainly isn't helping him either.
What's funny is a Steeler fan texted me the other night. He said, defense, 14 points, offense, 12 points. I mean, it took 2 scores from both those two guys and just dominate. I mean,
and barely held on, even with 2 defensive
I liked him. I liked him coming in. I drank the Kool-Aid. I let the preseason influence me, and I regret that one because this is a team that looks like they're going to struggle to get to 9 wins.
Yep. Yeah. Tomlin will steal a couple wins and like hype spots, and the defense will come out and make a couple plays. But Hayward's a big loss, and especially for Fitzpatrick, he's really like one of the only guys you would trust back there. We'll see. He got out of the hospital the other day with a chest injury. So this Steelers offense, I also think they're not doing any favors. I mean, look, losing Johnson, they didn't draft the right running back. The offensive line still isn't great. So Pickett's not in the best situation. And then the play calling from Matt Canada, who just runs such an outdated offense. There's like no play action. There's a lack of motion, all these things that, have been born from the Shanahan tree that every successful offense is utilizing, not the Steelers.
The game I have circled before we get out of here is Seattle -6 at home against Carolina. I mean, I think Carolina is really, really bad. I went for a walk when it was 20-9 because the other game was at halftime, and I came back and somehow it was 2017. I rewatched the drive. I mean, they hit like a 4th down play. Obviously, the 2-point play was kind of lucky. I mean, I'm just not buying into Carolina. I actually think rewatching week 1, the Seattle Rams game, that Geno wasn't as bad as his numbers. And then obviously week 2, I thought Geno looked pretty good. They clearly have a lot of offensive firepower. Now Seattle's defense isn't exactly, 2014 version. So that, when you're giving up basically almost a touchdown makes you, but I think that place is going to be loud. I think getting a win like that kind of re-energizes the fan base. They made the playoffs last year, so it's like people are into it. So that, I don't know if it'll ever be what it was, but I think that's a tough spot for a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, still one of the bigger,
I love Seattle -6 this week.
Yeah, I don't have a really strong feel there. I have a lot of respect for I mentioned him earlier, Evero, the defensive coordinator for Carolina.
He's good.
He's good. He can scheme up a lot of confusing looks and maybe force Geno into a mistake or two here, because Carolina games are going to be ugly. I mean, you saw that last week. They should ban them and the Jets and from primetime. But I don't have a strong feel, but it's hard to back Carolina right now. I will tell you that it'll be a game where we will learn a lot about Bryce Young, because you're going up against defense that isn't great, and it's a defense that doesn't generate a ton of pressure. So, and he's a bit undersized,
bit.
Yeah. So, but now, if he's going to be in a pocket, undersized, right, on the road, he's got 2 starts under his belt now. In theory, you should feel a little bit more comfortable. What will he look like? Will he look poised? Will he hit the throws? Because he shouldn't be under much pressure. So, I don't know if I probably won't have a bet there, but I will be watching Young because I think it's a game where you'll learn a lot. And you can probably take something from that and be like, nope, this isn't it. Or, okay, I can kind of see it working. So I'll definitely be watching it closely. Don't mind your side, but I'll probably be on the sidelines.
When I was looking at the board, it's hard to miss the Chargers, getting a point on the road at Minnesota, but you're like, how the hell am I going to trust this team and this coach right now? You can't. That game's a stay away to me, but you're tempted. You're like, God, Justin Herbert, the offense, be like, no fucking way.
Just, if anyone out there is live bets, just live bet the team that's down like 14 at one point, because they'll probably come back and win. Yeah, this is the team. This is the Vikings regression monster is out for revenge. Like last year, they got every bounce, won every close game, and they weren't that good and won 13 games. This year, they've been playing better. They should have beat the Bucks. Arguably, they should have beat the Eagles. I think they've lost like 8 fumbles or -9. I mean, every bounce is going against them. And all that regression that was due is hitting them now. So you have this team that is all the regression is hitting versus a team that finds ways to lose. So like regression gods versus finds ways to lose. I don't know. It should be a fun watch. There should be a lot of points. And the most disappointing thing is Brandon Staley. So like he has his issues with his head coaching, but his specialty is defense. And this defense right now, if you go by a couple advanced metric sites, dead last in the NFL, dead last. And, it's not the best defensive unit as far as talent's concerned, but there's some talented guys on the defense.
It ain't the worst.
It should not be anywhere close to the worst. And this is supposed to be, his forte. And that was my, at least I would always, say Staley has all these shortcomings, but he can scheme defense. He's not even doing that anymore. So, I have no idea in this game. Just if whoever's down, live bet them. And then when they go up, live bet the other team. It's probably going to be good. Try to go to overtime. Maybe bet overtime, yes. But that one should be a fun watch. I have no idea what's going to happen in that game.
I think if Staley loses, there's a chance that he's gonzo come Monday morning because they need a spark. They wouldn't write off the season just yet. And maybe they give basically Kellen Moore a 14-game interview, essentially. That's my prediction.
Yeah. I mean, you go.
Though I'm not predicting them to lose. I got no clue what's going to happen. Wouldn't shock me either way. I mean, I could see Cousins throwing 4 touchdowns. I could also see the Chargers beating them by 2 touchdowns. You know, it's hard.
Yeah.
This game's probably the biggest wild card of the weekend.
Yeah. I will say that if you start 0-3, if you don't get a spark in the AFC, it starts to get ugly and scary quick. And I mean, 0-3, I think teams that start 0-3, I think 2% have made the playoffs over the past 10 years. And then you have all the teams in the AFC North. Someone from the AFC South is going to make it. And then you look at the
Dolphins and the Dolphins and the Bills are in. The Chiefs are in.
Yeah. You're probably going to have Ravens, Browns. We'll see where the Bengals go. But you look at the Chiefs schedule coming up: Bears, Jets, Vikings, Broncos, and then home against the Chargers, Broncos again. The only team they play with a win over the next 8 weeks is the Jets, who no longer have a quarterback.
So they might clinch by Halloween.
Yeah, they're about to run out here on the division. So you go 0-3 and you don't get a spark, it's over, and then it gets real ugly.
Okay, Stuckey. Let's have a weekend. Saturdays should be a special day, and hopefully that's why Steve Jobs made iPhones, so I could watch football in the bathroom when people are getting married. So take it easy, bro. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, FaceTime me if you need me to put my phone up towards the TV or something during the wedding. I'll hook you up.
I will.
All right,
thanks,
brother.
man.
Good luck.
See you.